Welcome to Women Made New. I'm your host, Crystalina Evert. Thank you for joining me and tuning in. Today, we have beautiful Kris Forbes. Welcome to Women Made New, Kris.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm excited to be here.
So we had a lot of fun. So let me set the stage for everyone, okay? This last week, we went up to, what was last weekend? We went up to the Lowell Observatory, which was in Flagstaff, and we took 20 sophomores up there with two other chaperones, two male chaperones, one of the teachers, and an awesome father from the school. Kudos to him, seriously. And it was an amazing trip. And in the middle of all of the crazy and everything that is happening right now and the busyness of life, and I know, Kris, you understand because you have a big family as well, and we'll get into that, It was like I knew I just needed to stop, and it was something I needed to just go do and spend time with my kids and just be a part of it all. And it was really a lot of fun. So first, let's get into, Kris, who you are, how many kids you have, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Well, it was a huge blessing to spend that time with you and with those precious kids and to go to that observatory and just see the wonder of creation. It was very humbling and beautiful. And so I'm a wife and a mother. I have been married for almost 25 years. I have 8 kids ranging in age from 11 to 24, and I am so blessed to have 2 precious, amazing grandchildren. It truly is a blessing and a crown of glory from the Lord. And so I'm busy. I'm, like you, just running around and trying to do God's will and falling down and getting back up again. So,
right. And you know what? That's awesome of you to say, because everybody falls, everybody gets back up. Nobody does everything perfectly, and nobody does everything just right. Right. And so it's that humility that it's like, okay, well, I fell, but I get back up. And even if you're just making mistakes with your kids, which I make plenty on a day-to-day basis, okay, and I think we all do as moms, but I think it's important to acknowledge that we're just trying to do our best as moms, and it's not always going to be perfect, but that is okay. And I want to go back to our trip because that was so much fun. And a lot of you don't know this about me. I love going up on our roof, and we have a patio up there, and looking at the stars. And I have a big telescope, and I love looking up at God's creation, and it's beautiful. And I've had my kids' friends over to do it, and my kids do it with me. And sometimes I just go up there at night and I do my night prayer up there because it is so majestic and peaceful. And just, we forget to look up sometimes and the beauty of God. We're very linear people and we don't look up a lot, and it's just important. And so to be able to go and do this and look at those huge, these telescopes were the size of buildings. They were massive. They were huge.
Yeah, astounding.
They were astounding. And going where we were in Flagstaff, it's like you didn't even need a telescope. I could not believe the beauty because they don't allow lights at night there in certain areas, so you really could see everything. But it was also amazing to see the wonder and the awe in these teenagers, that nothing surprises them and they know everything sometimes, and then just to look up at the stars and see this, and just they were like such children, and the innocence and the wonder. It was really neat, wasn't it, to see all of that?
It was, yeah. It was amazing. And they were such good kids. We had an amazing time, and their enthusiasm and their joy for life, it's contagious.
And that is why I wanted to have you on to share these topics, because there's a lot of wisdom Kris has, especially having the 8 kids and grandbabies already. I'm not there yet. I'm still with 3-year-olds, and, I still have my youngers.
Oh, yeah.
But she's in double digits and she's in the olders now, like much older. And so I just wanted to tap into that wisdom. And Women Made New is all about women helping women. And Kris has a lot of knowledge that I thought that we could get into. So that's why I wanted to have her on. And one of the topics that we talked about is when your daughter is going through a lot of those changes in her body and things happening that she's unsure about, especially when they start getting in those double digits, right? And one thing that was really, that we honed in on our conversation wasn't just that, but more of the insecurity of mothers that they have and the importance of their role in their daughter's life going through that time, but also how much their own brokenness and their past holds them back from having those pivotal conversations and being there fully for their daughters that they need to be, especially in their day and age when their identity is being so attacked on every level. So what do you have to say about that, Kris?
Well, I just want to say I have 4 daughters and 4 sons, and God has blessed me with these daughters and challenged me with them because I grew up with 3 brothers, no sisters. My mom growing up, I probably saw her wear a dress like 3 times in my life. She's just maybe not the most, what you would say, like stereotypical feminine example. She's so wonderful, so beautiful, tough. She's taught me amazing things about resilience, and she's an amazing mom. But I didn't necessarily grow up with this very strong female identity. Growing up, I wasn't one to play with dolls much or babysit. I guess in my mind, I just never really had maybe that strong maternal identity that some of my friends had. And I grew up in a very broken culture, like most of us did. And so God...
Did you grow up in a broken home? Was your mom at home with you?
She was at home. She worked when I was older. And I grew up Catholic, but kind of a Sunday Catholic, very much you kind of check these things off.
Check
in
the
a box.
boxes.
And, you say grace before meals and you show up to church, to mass on Sunday. You put your hour in, but it was very disconnected otherwise from the way that we lived. I think kind of that idea of a very personal relationship with Christ, with our Lord, was seen as almost extreme or cultish. Maybe they just, because of the way they were raised, that was a very like Christian idea in their mind, not necessarily a Catholic idea. And there was that disconnect. So growing up, I struggled with my feminine identity, and I became a teenager and a young person. I had these false ideas about what it means to be female. No one ever said to me, Kris, your feminine identity is a gift from God. God made you in his image and likeness as female. That like never even occurred to me, that idea. Like maybe loosely, I grew up, I went to Catholic schools. Maybe that idea that I was made in the image of God was presented, but we never really talked about what it means to be female. And so because of our culture, I grew up with some very strong ideas about femininity. One of those was that femininity equals sexuality. Another one is that femininity equals weakness. And another one is that femininity means being lesser than. And so being masculine or being as good as the boys,
tomboyish,
doing those things the boys are doing exactly, are going to make me better, stronger, higher than. And my sexuality is something I could wield and use as a woman, use to get what I want, weaponized in a way, or being sexually attractive is the most, one of the most important things about me as a female. And I think this is a message that our culture is still really strongly pushing on women. And we can see that in the gender confusion, in the identity crisis that's happening with young women, with this kind of blurring of lines that there is no such thing as God-given gender. And of course, this is a huge lie from Satan, and it's so troubling to see, and it's really heartbreaking.
And growing up, I was really confused as well. But my mom, I was a casualty of the 60s where a lot of the women left their homes and they were just out there. Granted, my mother had to raise me and my sister, and she was divorced, and she had to provide for us. But I didn't have that essence that was taught to me. And I've talked a lot about that here on my show, of just learning how to be a Catholic wife and that femininity and that just like essence of a Catholic woman and what that looks like. And even what just like a Martha Catholic store or like Kimberly Hahn, she like encompasses in my mind, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she encompasses what I'm talking about. Just being that Catholic homemaker
and
where
gentle,
I felt so inadequate and and
like,
just
just sweet natured, and I'm like, that's just not me. Have you ever felt like I'm just not very female? I'm not very feminine. I'm not good at this.
I just am missing that like sugar and spice. Let's just put it that way.
I'm more spice.
In myself. Yeah, exactly. And it was hard, especially when you got married, especially when you had kids, especially when you just were expected to know how to do those things. Yes. I really did not. It was very hard for me and very discouraging. And for the longest time, I thought I was the only one. I really did. And I realize now there is an entire generation of women just like me who didn't know or don't know or just struggle in that realm because they didn't grow up with that instilled in them. They didn't grow up with that Catholic grandma teaching them how to cook and fold and run the house, because that was a sign of weakness. And you didn't do those things. You know, you hired people to do those things. You go out and you make something of yourself kind of thing, because by doing that was like a humiliating thing to do. And in fact, it's a woman's crown of glory to be at her home, in her realm, in her to serve. And that's what we are called to do. And this is going to make maybe some women mad, but if we put it in the right order of things, right?
Yeah, and
it just makes sense.
Because I think, I felt so inadequate and I felt so alone. And I thought,
yes,
gosh, this is just going to become so easy.
And shameful.
I'm going to be a mother and I'm going to have these gifts of gentleness and peace and joy and nurturing. And, I felt like I was faking it. I felt like I was not doing
an
it
imposter.
Right. An imposter, yes. And, the Lord has, in his mercy, has just led me on this path, and really through learning about Mother Mary and a devotion to her and healing some of those family of origin wounds, some of those sexual wounds, some of those cultural lies, coming to have those gifts and those fruits of the Spirit, having gentleness and practicing that with my own kids and nurturing. And it becomes easier. And I think it's okay to, I'm not saying you're faking it. I'm saying you're practicing it, just like you practice any virtue. It might not feel natural to you, but we can practice those things. We can be what we're called to be, even when it doesn't come naturally, and then it will. And we can pray, because God, God changes us. And that's like, I get so excited about it. I just, like, I could burst, like, thank God that he can change us, because I'm not the person I was. And it's really about, I've taken the hard road. I like to beat my head against a wall a little bit, but God in his patience, has brought me to this point. Like, I'm changing you. It's so much less about what you're doing than letting me change you. And especially coming to this better understanding of what it means to be made in his image and likeness as female.
So again, we are talking with Kris Forbes, and we are discussing all things just womanhood, about the struggles of motherhood, the struggles of growing up without having that just Catholic mom and that essence of that, like Kimberly Hahn almost being in her home teaching us how to be those young adult women, getting married, having kids, running that household. It was not something that either of us grew up watching or were instilled in us. And there was a lot of struggle, at least for me, a lot of shame. And I still struggle with things this day. Nothing is perfect, and you're always learning, you're always growing, you're always healing. But at the same time, to come to that realization that I did have this handicap, that I didn't have it all together, that I did need help, that I was broken, was a hard moment for me, really hard moment for me to grasp and to admit. But that was years and years ago. And I was in the middle of having my little ones and my toddlers. They're in diapers. I'm pregnant. Jason was traveling. And I feel like everything's blowing up around me in our house, and it was hard. But there is also, ladies, on the flip side of this, there is going to be a time of struggle, no matter what. When you have multiple babies, you're having multiple pregnancies, and there's kids and households and laundries, and you're exhausted, there is going to be a time where things are disheveled. It's just what it
survival
is.
Mode.
Exactly. And that mommy shock, I call it mommy shock, after you have a baby, that first 3 months is brutal. At least that's what I've experienced. And having 8 children and 11 pregnancies, mommy shock is a real thing after. And so is being mom strong. And that's something I really tap to.
Be kind to yourself, ladies.
Yes. Talk about that. Let's talk about that, Kris. How did you find ways to be kind to yourself in the middle of that struggle?
So, I am like a type A personality, choleric, and I definitely spent a lot of years just pushing through, just pushing myself to be harder, to be better, to be perfect. And really, the Lord really just had to break me of that through just really hard life circumstances, through just difficulties with my children as they grew older, and really had to make me see how outside of my control everything is. God is in control and I'm not in control. And that's a good thing. And it took me a long time to realize that. And so I think, now that God has brought me to that point, really understanding that like self-care is important, things to make myself look good and feel good, exercise, so important, just making good food choices and caring for myself in that way. And then also at the same time, letting go of perfection, saying, you know what? It's okay if I don't have 4 side dishes with dinner tonight. It's okay if we have to get fast food tonight. That does not make you a bad person. You're a human being. I struggle with my humanity. I know that sounds crazy, but it's like, oh man, my own weakness is disappointing to me. And that's just a lack of humility, because I am a person and I have to treat myself with that compassion. And I make a mistake and I'm going to make mistakes. And the Lord in his mercy has helped me to like quiet that voice in my head that is telling me I'm rotten. And if I make a mistake, it's the end of the world. And, I've ruined everything. And just to speak truth and to get mad and to say, that is not truth. Spirit of truth, speak to me and let me know reality and truth. And that's actually what true humility is. It's just reality.
I'm coming to find that really that demonic dialogue, that mental beat up the devil wants to give us on a day-to-day basis of beating us down, and we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we're not capable, all of those things, right? Yeah. It is a daily struggle. It's a daily battle that those attacks come after you in different ways. Wouldn't you say, in different situations, that insecurity maybe wants to creep in, or that not good enough, or those things are always at your doorstep. Do you find that?
I find that, and I want to circle back because I think that leads to fear. Satan wants us to live in fear, and he wants us to make our choices based in fear. And when you were talking about, that brokenness and, we have these insecurities about our feminine identity. Well, I had these beautiful little girls, and they start to grow up and they get to that age, they're coming upon entering puberty. And I was filled with such fear. And that was not from the Lord. That was from those insecurities and that brokenness, and Satan saying, you're going to screw this up. You're going to mess up these girls. They're going to make the same bad choices you did. And unfortunately, especially with my oldest, instead of, bringing that fear to the Lord and overcoming that, I panicked. It was like that panic fear, like, I don't know what to say. I don't have the words. I'm just going to say nothing at all and just try to protect every situation and, be that helicopter parent and wrap her in bubble wrap. And there's this line of like protecting a child's innocence, which we absolutely have to do. But also the reality is that our kids are growing up, and they're growing up in a broken world, and they're going to be exposed to things. They're going to go out there and they're going to go through puberty. They're going to encounter their own sexuality and the sexuality of others. And it's part of who we are in the image and likeness of God. We have a sexual nature. We're female, and this is all part of who we are, and it's beautiful and it's good. And I just shut down. I couldn't communicate that. I didn't have the tools. And I think a lot of women today are in that same position.
So how did you overcome that, and the mistakes that you made with your first one? How did you kind of rectify that with your other daughters? Because and one of them you're like kind of doing right now because she's 11. So how did you change things, and how did you know you needed to change things?
God is so good. He's so good, and he uses all things for good. So I really saw with my oldest how she struggled, and how what I was doing or really not doing wasn't working, and came to realize that this fear, really wasn't from the Lord. And I think that was a gift of the Spirit. And I had a good friend who brought me into a ministry, had me bring my daughters and had me start getting involved. And it's called the St. Philomena Mother-Daughter Retreat. And it really is all about being made in the image and likeness of God as female. And from going on this retreat with my second daughter, it was just like a light bulb, came on, and I recognized truth. In so many ways, Jesus had led me to know him. Jesus is the truth. And so I think that helped me to recognize truth and to be like, this is the truth about my feminine identity. And I want to know more about this. And, as great as the retreat was for my daughter, who was, I believe, 15 at the time, it was so much more, I think, impactful to me. It was this truth I was hungering for and this identity I was struggling with. And God is so good in that way because he calls us even when, we're not fully formed and developed. He calls us into ministry sometimes to minister to us. I don't know if you've ever felt that way. And it's so humbling and it's so beautiful. And I'm a leader at heart. Like he's given me that personality and that gift. And so, when they said, come on in, we need leaders, come and learn about this, come be a part of this. I jumped in and the Lord ministered to me through learning about these things. And, if you would have told me back then that I would get up in front of a room of people and, pray over my own womb and say the word womb in a group full of people, I would have been terribly uncomfortable with that. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, that would have made me, cringe. Like, this is really uncomfortable. And he's led me so far and into levels of, comfort with my own identity and femininity and sexuality that I just never even imagined could be possible. And just these lies, just from giving talks and educating myself and learning and reading the works of Pope St. John Paul II. He has these beautiful works on the dignity of women, on theology of the body, his letter to women about the feminine genius. It's so inspiring, and it breaks down these lies that I talked about with the truth of the dignity and the personhood of women. And I can't tell you how grateful I am and how really the Lord has used my ministry work to heal me.
And it's so true that the closer you get to Jesus and the closer you get just enveloped in his light and in his grace, the devil has got to go. The lies have got to go because he heals you, and through the sacraments and through Eucharistic adoration, it's like the devil can't stand the light of God and he flees, right? And so the more we embrace what God is calling us to with the sacraments and with just these writings of these great saints and just spending time with them in adoration, your life really can change. And these seem like simple little things. And I'm sure there's a lot of really serious situations going on in a lot of people's home listening right now and just thinking, well, if I go read a couple books and I sit with Jesus and I go to confession, that's not going to fix everything. No, it's not, but it's going to start you on the right path and make you right with God. And he can lead and guide you on a day-to-day basis versus you trying to figure it out all on your own. Because I've been there, I've done that, and it's been nothing but a mess, a big hot mess,
Oh, I hear you.
And it's been a nightmare. So it's like, you know what? If it is a mess, that is okay. We've all been there. You're not alone, but give that mess. The difference is give the mess to God.
Absolutely.
Go to confession. Give it, hand it over, surrender. And I love how honest and candid you are about all of that. And we are going to take a quick break with our friends over at EWTN, and we will be right back with Kris Forbes. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Women Made New. I'm your host, Crystalina Evert. Thank you for joining me and thank you for tuning in. I am here today with Kris Forbes, and we are just talking about all things women. We're talking about being a wife, a mother, our struggles, brokenness, how to overcome the lies of the evil one, and just to get right with God and help our daughters who may be struggling with their own identities and maybe going through some changes in their own body, and how we as mothers can help them. And we need to step up and help them walk with them also in that confusing time, because if we don't, something else will take its place. And the world definitely is happy to tell our daughters who they are and their identity. And that is not what we want. If we aren't the gatekeepers of that, and we don't instill that feminine genius and why God created them and what their bodies are made for, and that they have a mission and they have a purpose and they have a plan, and they don't hear that from us, they're going to hear a distorted version of that from the world. And so I really want to call mothers right now to wake up, because you need to speak with your daughters and nurture them and guide them, especially in that confusing time as a young woman, maybe going through those changes that she doesn't know how to handle, maybe thinks something's wrong with her, isn't sure what's going on. And if she doesn't get information from you, she will go find it elsewhere because they're scared and they're vulnerable and they don't know what is happening. But these kind of conversations, just even that basic self-care, Kris, I would say is sometimes hard for moms to talk with their daughters about. And just teaching them the basics of taking care of themselves on a feminine level, even at a younger age, and going in to womanhood. So why do you think this is? Like, what's the insecurity? Is it because their mothers have their own insecurities, and then it's almost a generational thing that happens where they don't talk to their daughters because they weren't talked by their mothers, and then they don't talk to their daughters, and it just goes round and round we go.
Yeah, and it's exactly, and you kind of model what you've received, and I think the devil uses that fear. He absolutely makes you feel incompetent, incapable, and I think, in our society we have these like huge pendulum swings, like sexuality, hush hush, don't talk about it, it's bad, 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 to this extreme, like it's good and everything goes, and you can kind of get caught in this like large swing, and just finding that balance and the truth that sexuality is good and God-given and beautiful, but also deserves like dignity and respect and protection. Just finding that middle ground, so important. And what you said about the relationship even before the girls get to that point, before they're entering puberty, really building that relationship, building that foundation of trust, so important, because the girls are going to get to this age and we're going to need to talk about really important things, and we need our daughters to know that they can come to us. They can ask questions. They don't have to be afraid. And when they're little, when they're younger, that just looks like spending the time listening to their story. I think we've all been there. We're doing 100 things. I'm answering an email and a text message and trying to cook dinner. And one of my little ones comes up and wants to tell me this long, rambling story. And in my mind, I'm like freaking out, and I'm like, okay, love right now looks like just stopping and listening and nodding and smiling and encouraging. And as the kids get older,
and eye contact,
they want to have eye contact and a hug. And as they get older, might want to have these conversations at like 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night. And I'm so tired and I'm so done. And it's saying like, okay, having that, the wisdom to know, like, am I capable right now of pushing through? Can God give me that grace to really hear them, listen to them? Or, with love and charity, saying, I'm so tired. This is so important. And I want to talk to you about this, but I'm afraid in my current tired state, I won't be able to give it the attention it really, truly deserves, because what you say is important and valuable. Can we schedule some time to get together tomorrow? These are really important things, because I fail at this. I'm not going to, be like, oh, she's so perfect. No, I mean, I know this from, snapping at my kids and being like, be quiet, don't talk to me. I can't do this right now. And having to come back and apologize. And I spent a lot of the time learning by doing it wrong and then apologizing.
Yes.
Praise God that he has given me like the ability to say sorry. I wish I didn't mess up so much in the first place, but I know that at least I can model apologizing and admitting when you're wrong and coming back and trying to do it right. And that is, if God is not, love and mercy, what else is he? So I hope I can model that at the very least.
And the fact you do that, and I think it's important, moms, that we do that, and that they see how that's done as well, to teach them how to do that, because it can be hard. It can be hard to apologize. It can be hard to admit you're wrong. It can be hard to say, look, I messed up. I'm sorry. But it really matters to their little hearts when you do that, and to have that healing. It is important, especially with the girls. The boys, they're so much easier. that I've found, especially with my olders. But the girls, yes, it matters to their little hearts. So that's a
Yeah, and
good
that's part
point.
of our feminine nature.
It
We
really
have
is.
sensitive hearts, and we have that gift. It's a gift, and it's a cross. That sensitivity. And so, I think as moms, we can be hyper aware, and we can have that sensitivity that can be good and beautiful and lead to cluing into things and nonverbal things. And that's why the mom is the heart of the household. She sees those emotional needs. But it can be a cross. It can be hard for us as moms because we do take on those burdens, and we feel what our kids feel and our husbands. And I think it's Mary that models that for us. It's, that her heart was pierced too, and that moms in a special way suffer that way, and we carry that cross. And we have to bring that to the Lord. We have to, we'll get crushed under the weight of that. We have to unite it with Christ. And I loved what you said, just go to adoration. Just start for anyone out there listening. I would encourage you, start there, go to adoration, ask the Lord, who am I? Who did you make me to be in your image and likeness? Who am I as a female, as a daughter, as a beloved one? Ask him to reveal that to you, and don't be afraid of your own imperfection. Like, don't be like me, who spent so many years being like, Lord, I'll be with you in a minute. I'm busy being perfect over here and saying the right number of prayers and looking the right way on the outside to people, and I'll be with you in a minute. And the Lord was just crying out, just be with me. I want to be with you right now. He's not afraid to be with you wherever you are, in whatever state. And that's what's actually going to change us and lead us to holiness and to a deeper relationship. It's being with him. So start right there and entrust your daughters to him, and ask the Holy Spirit to give you the words. And don't be afraid. Be not afraid. Go out there and learn these things. The Lord's going to change our hearts and give us courage, and then we can educate our minds. And with the truth, we can read some of these things. We can go online and find the right resources, and we can entrust that to the Lord, that God can equip us and will equip us.
And the biggest thing is courage. Right now, I think Catholics need to have courage, and they need to pray for that holy courage, because we're definitely up against a lot right now. But Jesus is with us. God is with us, and he wouldn't ask us to do what he wouldn't give us everything and equipped us to accomplish, right, in our lives. And every time God has asked me to do something, no matter how hard or rigorous or overwhelming it seemed, he always gave me everything I needed. And maybe not in the way I wanted it, but what I needed, right?
True?
It's the truth. So it may not always be exactly what you want or what you think, but it will be what you need to get you through that moment, and you will be better on the other side. But just pray for courage in those moments. And you are the gatekeeper. You are your daughter's gatekeeper and protector, and so is the father. But a mother, in a special way, needs to teach her daughter these things, and about that feminine genius, and about her body and those changes. And for moms out there that have a really hard time maybe talking with their daughters about these things, or that it's difficult, or you have your insecurities, and your daughter is going through things, or she's going to be coming upon those changes, maybe get a journal. And that's one thing that I knew helped a lot of moms, just getting a journal and letting them know, look, if you ever have any questions about just life or things going on with your body or things happening, and it could be as much as like stuff going on with their face or just body changes or this or that, and you don't want to have those conversations, or your daughter may be embarrassed to have those conversations, she can write the question out, and then you could take the journal maybe when she's at school, and then you can give her the answer and just kind of go through and see where your daughter's heart is at and see if they want to talk about it. But there's ways and means of doing this and talking with your daughter to get them through this time. But you want to be the person that they go to, and not their friends, because that's not good.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And you know your own child best. Every child is so different. I have some of my children who are just, they're just right out there. They're going to look me straight in the eye and ask me any question they want to ask me. And others who are like, please don't say anything. Don't even talk about a pimple. That is embarrassing enough. I can't talk about a pimple. I found the writing thing is great. I love the journal idea. I found another great place for some of those kids is the car, because you don't have to make eye contact. You're both facing forward. It feels a little safe. They might even not be in the same row. They might be one row behind, and it can make them feel like I can have this conversation without feeling so vulnerable. And everybody's sensitivity level is different, and we definitely want to respect that. And I think a lot of moms struggle too with how soon is too soon? When do I start talking about these things? And there's no hard or fast rule. Again, your own kids, but really question whether you're holding back from talking about something out of protecting their innocence or out of fear. And it's a discernment, and that's something you've got to really pray through. And you have to understand your own family situation and the culture that your kids are encountering on a day-to-day basis.
So what are some of the things that you did with your daughters and that you changed, that you knew you needed to do in your own home to give them some really just solid, I can do these things in my home. I want someone to walk away saying, okay, I can do that. I can implement that. That won't be too hard.
So definitely just starting out with being really open, about our sexuality, about, correctly talking about the body parts from a young age, really using anatomically correct terms. And it's a part of the body like any other, and it's special. And this is what makes you masculine or feminine. These are part of what makes you masculine or feminine. That's our body identity, because we're whole people. We have a mind, a spirit, a body, and a social aspect. And so kids recognizing that from a young age, and that it's nothing shameful, or it's private but not secret or shameful. So we have, that very foundational level, talking about, when kids are little and they notice, mom has a baby in her tummy, or auntie or sister, being excited about that, yes, women can have babies. It's such a gift from God. This is part of how God made women special. So from young ages, really being excited about those things, celebrating the gift of femininity. We talk about the feminine genius at my household, and how sometimes as girls get to be a certain age, they're very mother henny, and that can be a little annoying to the younger siblings, or to the brothers. And we talk about that, like, oh, that's just her feminine genius. She wants to mother you, and she wants to make sure everything is going well.
Yes,
and sometimes
that's cute.
Sometimes that can be a lot when you have a lot of females in the house, like we do. So, we use that terminology, and we see it as a gift. And as girls get close to getting their period, just being really honest about those changes and talking about, you have a womb, and it's an amazing sacred space. It's this incredible organ that is so strong because you're strong, and it is being, our bodies are preparing in the future to be able to carry life, if that's God's will and his vocation for you. And so when we're having a period, this is, just very factual. The body is preparing food for a potential baby. And if there is no baby, then that rich, nutrient-dense part of the lining of the uterus, the womb, needs to slough off because it's not needed. And that's what our period is. You don't have to be like, oh, it's all sunshine and roses, because
no, it's
anybody
not.
out there who has a period knows that it's not. And that's okay to be. It's beautiful, and it's also hard, and it's also a challenge. It can be a cross to be a female in this way. Cramps stink. Headaches. I get headaches with my hormones. It stinks. It can be inconvenient, especially for our young ones, who might have to not go swimming or, give up something, depending on, what their comfort level is. And there's the reality in that. And I think bringing that back to the cross and being like, we have this great gift to bring life into the world, just like Christ brought life into the world through the cross, literally through shedding his blood. We want to draw that comparison. I don't think that's too strong of a truth to speak to our daughters, to say, this is a price we pay. This is a huge gift and dignity. We are made in the image and likeness of God to bring life into the world. I mean, I am so humbled by that. I have goosebumps saying that. I still don't know that I can fully comprehend that he would entrust that to me, to a broken creature. And so, when we have our period, we have to go back to that truth. This is a small price. This is a very small price.
And God breathes life into our womb. It's beautiful. God touches our womb. It's very sacred. It's incredibly sacred, and an honor to be able to do that as women, but also, I guess, a scary thing to talk about when you're not comfortable or confident in your own sexuality and your own experiences and things that you've gone through. But again, I really do go back to, if you don't talk to your daughters about these things, it is going to end up hurting them than helping them, because society will tell them what is happening to them and they will fill them with lies. And I know just with my own daughter, and she is 15, going to be going into 16 this summer, which, wow, it's like this leap from 15 to 16. It's a big one. But just going from when they become double digits, I call that double digits, when just 10 years old and on, to really just take them out, to spend time, to go out to coffee shops and give them tea and just spend time with them, talk with them, what's going on with life, what's going on with your friends, what's going on, like enter into their world, and to have those late night conversations, like you said, which opened up a world of just talking and information, and both of us being able to talk to one another about what was happening and what's going on, and just those private conversations with mom, and
yeah, and so important.
And
to speak truth.
Yes.
To reveal ourselves to them as well. I'm not saying maybe, just full confession truth about everything in your life, but to be real with them too, to admit our own struggles, to talk about when we were young, even if it's, that can be serious and that can be silly, to be like, oh yeah, I remember this time I was so embarrassed, I got my period and yeah, it was the worst. And, to be real with our daughters and to help them to see us as women, as someone who has walked on this journey and, maybe has some wisdom to offer, to let them know us in that way. And then to be open to knowing them, because, God gives us our kids for such a short time, but they are these unique individuals. And, we might need to really take off some kind of lenses of pride or whatever, we put on our kids as a reflection of ourselves, and to really get to know them. And it's so fun and amazing to see as they get older, their personalities and, the individual unique way that God is revealing himself to the world through them. And so, I want to challenge moms out there to do that, to really get to know your daughters as they get older, 14, 15, 16, and to see their uniqueness and to delight in it, because the Lord, delights in each one of us. And as moms, I know I'm guilty of this. I get busy and I'm just trying to manage, and I'm trying to get people where they need to be and get the food on the table and get people to bed. And a whole day can go by and I just think, man, did I even enjoy my kids today? Did they get a sense that I was just trying to get it done? Or did they think, my mom delights in me, she loves me? And I just pray that the Lord can help me to see that, help me to be in that present moment, and, to know, for my kids to know how loved they are, not just by me and my husband, but by the Lord.
Absolutely. And also having these conversations, it's not all about your body changes and what's going to happen. And it's really getting to have that foundation of that relationship with your daughter, to be able to have an ease of having those open conversations, right? And
absolutely.
And also to instill in your daughters that they have a special purpose, a mission, a plan, and their importance in our society and their importance in the church and what God created them for. And I feel like we really overlook that, even talking to our boys about that. And we even forget ourselves that we are created for something very specific, and God's purpose and plan in our lives that he has specifically for us, right? And even we
Absolutely.
forget that as moms and as women. And I think it's important that it's something that we're instilling, that always listen to that small, still voice. And that's one thing I definitely have instilled in my kids, always listen, because when I'm not around, God definitely is. And I always tell them, you know better. I know you know better. So don't tell me, because you heard that voice, you know right from wrong, and you knew if you shouldn't have been doing that or not. And I see it in their face. Parents know, but at the end of the day, it needs to go deeper than that, of knowing God created me, but for what? For a purpose and his plan. But what is that? And it's just the closer you get to him, being right with him and going to confession, having the grace of God with you, and being able to clearly hear that your conscience and the Holy Spirit leading and guiding you, I think, is pivotal throughout life, not just during that time, and to instill in them, this is something that throughout your life, you are always going to have to try to make that right decision and do God's will. And it isn't always going to be easy, but whatever it is he's asking, it's part of his plan for your life, right?
And it's so important. What you're saying is so important. And especially, you know, in this time when these girls are growing up and they're changing and they're experiencing these bodily changes, to talk about that, you know, it's more becoming an adult, becoming a woman. And these changes are more than just what's happening in your body, because you're a whole person, and there's going to be changes happening in your mind and with your spirituality and with your social relationships. And so it's so key for our daughters to understand the fullness of their femininity.
So let's talk about resources for moms right now, and maybe some things that they could go to help them nurture their daughters.
So as I mentioned before, the Lord has really led me down this journey and blessed me through a ministry that I'm a part of. I am now the director of this ministry. It's called the St. Philomena Mother-Daughter Retreats, and we are based in the Phoenix area, but we have been traveling, and we can come, God willing, if that's his plan, to other parts of the country. We have traveled to California, and we're actually coming to Ohio this summer, which we're really excited about. But this is a 3-day retreat for moms and daughters. It's for girls 11 to 14. So we're talking about this age when they're entering puberty. And it's a whole person retreat. We're really celebrating the gift of femininity. We're really talking about what it means to be made in the image and likeness of God as female. And so we're getting into all of this stuff, puberty and the changes in friendships, our spiritual being, and how, as girls get older, it is their job to listen to that voice of the Holy Spirit, and how we do that, and boundaries, and protecting the gift of ourself, protecting our minds, our hearts, our bodies. It's such a wonderful retreat. I am so blessed to be a part of it. And Crystalina, I believe you came with your daughter a few years ago.
I did. I took my daughter on this when it was like the cusp of it. And I think I was so pregnant. Oh my gosh. I think I was, who knows which pregnancy it was, but I remember I was massive, and I was like, I hope I don't go into labor on this retreat. But I knew how important it was. And those 3 days were wonderful. And I spent time with Mary. I spent time with her friends. I spent time with, we spent time in adoration, and it was just a really good all around amazing experience. And I just didn't want it to always be her and I talking about these things, but I wanted to let her know that there are other girls going through exactly what she's going through, and other moms who are helping their daughters. And it was just beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. And I looked a lot into it before we went, and I knew I wanted something. And also some of her little friends went as well, which was great. And so it was a really lovely weekend, and it helped me, and everything was just so solid and beautiful and Eucharistic. And what is the word? It was so pure, though, too, the delivery of everything. And it really helped them grasp who they are, what they're created for, almost that theology of the body, because a lot of it is based on the theology of the body, which is beautiful. And that's what moms want, because they don't know how to talk like that. Even some of the ways the women talked about things, I was like, oh, that's great. That's an excellent delivery. Being a speaker sitting there, it was wonderful. So
it's amazing to see how it impacts the moms. I've looked out and seen moms just with tears streaming down their face.
Yeah.
Because they are hearing for the first time about their great dignity, and they're healing, and they're recognizing the beauty of their femininity. And it's a fun time, and there's time for, mom and daughter discussion, and there's time for doing fun things together and building relationship. And so I just, I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And especially if you're struggling with, how to say these things or opening that door. And that's why it's a mother-daughter retreat, because what we really want is to foster that relationship and to open the door so that in the future, moms and daughters have this starting point, and they can go back to these sessions and these conversations. And that's really our goal, is to equip and empower moms to be able to do this. And so, I'm really excited about it.
No, it's wonderful. And I enjoyed it. And I'm going to be bringing my other daughter as well. And we're almost to that point again where I need to. But it was just nice seeing other like-minded mothers trying to do the same thing for their daughters and having those discussions. And also, you can opt out of any of the talks or discussions that you wanted to, or just go and take that time with your daughter and just spend some time and talking one-on-one. And it was just really beautiful. So I go back, ladies, to make sure you take time. It truly is a gift to be able to stop and say, I know I have a lot going on right now. I know I have deadlines, but I need to stop and I need to go focus. And this needs some attention right now. Thank you for everything that you are doing, Kris. And I know you're helping that younger generation that needs help, and those moms that are floundering like I was that need help as well. So thank you for all that you do. Where can women find out about these retreats and what you're doing?
Well, praise God. He uses the broken and he builds us up and makes us strong. And so I just give him the glory. And please visit our website, philomenaretreat.org. It's like after St. Philomena, so it's PHILOMENA retreat.org. And reach out to us if you want us to come to your area, see where our retreats are happening next. And you can do all the registration online. You can learn more about our talks and our ministry. And we'd love to just see what the Lord is going to do with this. It's all in his hands.
Absolutely. Well, thank you and God bless you.
Thanks so much.
I want to thank my guest again, Kris Forbes, for being here. And ladies, it is almost here. The EWTN online free learning series for the book Women Made New. You can sign up at EWTN.com/women-made-new and join countless women from all over the world that are signing up to do this program. I am so excited. So sign up today. Don't forget to go to confession and know you are all in my prayers. God bless.